This is Hemant.
And Jessica.
And you're listening to the Friendly Atheist Podcast. Please go to patreon.com/Friendly Atheist Podcast to support the show. $5 a month. Get your bonus episodes and ad-free episodes. And guess what?
What?
Pat Robertson is still dead.
Hey!
There you go. Still haven't heard a thing about him since he died, but there you go.
Wow.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you? I'm just really thinking about.
I begin all my conversations this way now, by the way.
Honestly, I'm here for it. I just I hope that my presence lasts more than 45 minutes after I die. Genuinely, imagine if one of us dies and people just forget we existed.
It'll happen one day.
True, it
We're a
does
happy
feel
show.
inevitable.
Do you want to start with the weirdest, dumbest story ever? Sure you do.
Okay.
It involves Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Oh, yeah.
Governor of Arkansas because Arkansas. So last week...
Name recognition will really get you there, huh?
Mm-hmm. Just over a week ago, the governor of Arkansas posted a picture on all of her social media accounts where she was bragging about her 3 kids because they had drawn this chalk drawing in front of the governor's mansion. And fine,
which is
whatever.
Adorable. If I liked Sarah Huckabee Sanders, a chalk drawing in front of the governor's mansion, adorable.
Could be adorable.
Except
nothing wrong with. Forget the kids. I don't care about the kids. They're fine. I'm not making fun of them. This particular drawing was a stained glass Christian cross. It's imagine a Christian cross with stained glass triangles all over it.
Sure.
All very meticulously drawn and colored. You
it
can look at it. It is up here. She said this is the masterpiece that her kids drew, which, okay.
No fucking way did those kids draw that.
I don't know if that came through on the mic, but yes, did those kids draw that? There's so many questions here.
Listen, that is better work than every one of the stage floors I helped paint all throughout high school, and we had professionals helping. There's no way those tiny children made that precise and beautiful drawing.
Okay, so we'll put aside the question of did her kids actually draw that?
They did not.
Okay, why would they draw that of all things
They're
you could
Christian.
draw? Is there any artistic merit to that masterpiece that she called it?
Yeah.
And is it a symbol of pride because it has a lot of colors in the stained glass area?
Yeah, I see what you're doing there.
And does it violate the 10 Commandments because it is a form of idolatry? We'll set aside.
How do you feel about what we're doing right now?
We'll set aside all of that.
Okay.
Because the thing that I saw in that picture is that, okay, I see what you're doing, Sarah. You're basically putting a giant Christian symbol in front of the governor's mansion, then attributing it to your kids as if that
a professional human being who was paid a lot of money to go to art school and learn how to do beautiful chalk art did.
Part of me thinks, yeah, some professional drew the outline and then her kids colored it in.
Haven't. You have children. I've been around children.
Yeah, they don't draw that.
Wait. I want to be very clear about how crisp and beautiful this chalk drawing is. And listen, I work with kids and they're fucking idiots. They do not have the wherewithal to have a smudge-free chalk artwork.
It really was smudge-free.
Especially on the ground, and they're tiny human people.
Yes.
How did they? It's big. What?
Yes.
How big was it?
It's friggin'
6 by 10?
huge. I don't know.
Ish, maybe
it's
even bigger.
Big.
Those kids can't get. This is
So,
listen. It doesn't pass the smell
test.
test.
The message is if this is a Christian governor's mansion right here. You got to be Christian to walk through those doors.
Well,
only Christians are welcome. She knows that's the message. That's why she shared it. This isn't some random drawing that they learned in Sunday school and then drew. She did it because it's a Christian symbol and this is her brand. It's not like she has legislative accomplishments to brag about. So her kid's drawing a cross in front of the house?
Explain to me why this is a story. Of
Here's
course,
why this is a
very
story.
religious governor does not have much to talk about, and so they fall back to religious, beating those religious drums.
This is all I want to talk about. Here's the thing.
I guess I'm
and look,
confused
if
about
there's
why
one
you're
thing
kind of-
Sarah Huckabee Sanders loves to do, it's exploiting child labor. Come on.
That's pretty funny.
Come on. So here's the thing. She knew. I think she set this up. I think this was bait. Because she knew if anyone complained about it, about a giant Christian cross in front of the governor's mansion, think about the things she could say. This is persecution. You're attacking my children. You just hate Christianity. Take your pick. Of course she was going to do that. And guess what? That is exactly how this played out. Because a week ago, Americans United for Separation of Church and State tweeted that they sent a letter to Sanders explaining why this was a problem. And like, here's the thing. AU, very polite about this stuff because that's usually their MO here. They wrote, the governor's mansion, this is not your personal home here. This is the governor's mansion. It's a public building. If you have any religious imagery anywhere there, it ought to be in the private quarters of your house, not in the public-facing version of it, part of it. And telling people that this artwork was meant to, quote, welcome people into the governor's mansion, they said that's a violation of the Establishment Clause. It sends the message that Arkansas favors one religion over another. Here's what they actually wrote. You and your family are free to display and create religious images and art in private areas of your residence. But a public-facing display in front of an entrance intended to welcome people into the governor's mansion is plainly on the wrong side of the constitutional line. We therefore ask that you remove this display. Now, just to be clear here, that's not a lawsuit. This is a polite reminder that, hey, this thing that you think is just a harmless little cute thing your kids did, it's not just a little cute thing. This is a problem. She would know that was a problem. This is me talking, not AU. She would know this was a problem if a Muslim governor had an Islamic symbol painted in front of a governor's mansion. If Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, had a Jewish symbol painted in front of his. Imagine a gay or lesbian governor putting a pride flag, drawing that in front of their mansion because this is a symbol.
The White House was in rainbow colors when gay marriage.
With light, temporarily.
Yeah.
With Obama.
Unlike permanent
And what-
chalk.
And what did What did Sarah Huckabee Sanders and all the Christian right people do when Obama used lights on the White House with the rainbow? They didn't sit there and say, well, that's fine.
I guess.
No, of course they threw a shit fit about it.
Wait, why? Okay.
And that wasn't even religious. That wasn't illegal.
of
That was a
course it
celebration of
wasn't.
civil rights. This one is a Christian symbol. Don't look at me like that. I'm mad.
I'm sorry. I
So-
know you're mad, and someday I'll figure out
Someone
what pushes
needed
your
to
buttons.
call her out on this. AU did. And so how did Sarah Huckabee
Well,
Sanders
of course
respond?
she played the persecution.
Oh, of
card
course she
so
did.
hard.
Here's what she
and
tweeted.
Yes, and she,
Dear Americans United. I wish I could do a Southern accent. I cannot.
oh, I thought you were
I
a
have
really good
received
actor.
your letter, and my answer is no. I will not erase the beautiful cross my kids drew in chalk on the driveway of the governor's mansion, or remove my post on social media. And there's more, and I will not now or ever hide that I am a Christian, which no one was asking her to do. She also said, in Arkansas, we stand up to bullying liberals. We won't let you power wash our kids' chalk drawings off our front steps. We won't let you tear down Christmas decorations and stomp our traditions into the dirt. We don't live our lives in fear of strongly worded letters coming down from Washington. I am offended by the implication that just because I am a Christian, I am somehow a bigot. Think about all the shit she just made up whole cloth for that thing. No one bullied her. No one said, power wash this immediately. It's like, just don't do it. All you have to say is, all right, we won't do it again. It would have been fine. No one's murdering Santa. No one's burning down churches. No one's calling her a bigot, like not at AU. I am, because she is, but AU is not. They didn't call her any names, and they didn't do it because she's a Christian. They did it because she's promoting Christianity using her seat as governor. And that's the thing that bothers me. Like, this is what conservatives write when they know they're going to rile up progressives because she didn't address any of the church-state separation issues.
At least she didn't rile you up, Hemmett.
I know.
At least she didn't get exactly what she
did her
wanted
daddy
from
say?
you personally.
What did her daddy say?
I don't care.
Mike Huckabee
Why? I
called
don't wanna
Americans
hear about
United bully Christophobes.
That's
which
pretty
is
funny.
A term I've never heard before.
Christophobe is very fun, and it does not roll off the tongue, and it will not stick
Mike
anywhere.
Huckabee is nothing if not a champion poet.
Yeah, no, forgive me for not getting my hackles up about this the way I actually haven't, but this feels very rote. It feels very much like, oh, a government official did something flagrantly Christian.
Unconstitutional. Promoting Christianity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dog. Yeah,
Yeah.
bud. Yeah, I mean, oh boy, I don't know why this is the unconstitutional.
Here's what else she did that made me mad.
You just interrupted me. I know everybody thinks I interrupt you, but there's been like 3 people who are like, you have to stop interrupting Jess. You literally just started talking over me. This just feels like the same shit I have been reading and writing about since I started being a part of the Friendly Atheist as a reader of like, oh, this Christian lawmaker did something that's obviously unconstitutional, but it's Christian, so everybody... And let's all get super fucking mad about it. Whether or not I think the AU?
Yeah.
AU's response was measured and fine.
Yes.
I have no problem with any of this. I guess my curiosity is why is this the shit that gets you... Like, this is honestly like the fucking...
This is the graffiti on the subway. This is the small thing they do that in the grand scope of things is not a big deal. There'll be bigger things we're going to talk about later.
Are you doing a broken windows
Yes,
theory?
that's what I was getting at. They're going to get away with this shit. And if they are allowed to get away with this shit, they're just going to keep pushing it.
But they're already getting away with it in the Supreme Court.
Totally
like,
agree.
Why do I fucking give a shit if Sarah Huckabee Sanders is being a dick in Arkansas? I'm not going to go to Arkansas. Like, no, I know that's not a fair thing. But truly, like...
Wait, so you're fine with the AU letter?
Yeah. The AU letter? Yeah.
Calling her out on this?
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
I am just wondering why, like...
And her response to their letter?
It's absurd.
Okay.
It's absurd.
So it sounds like we're exactly in the same place.
But, like, I don't think this is... I would never in a million years tee off our podcast with this story because it feels like a Mad Libs.
Oh, this was the appetizer for the bigger stuff.
No, but true. No, I'm being serious. Like, he's like, this is crazy. It's not crazy. We do this story every week. Either it's a kid drawing a cross in front of the governor's mansion, or it's some dude praying on a football field, or it's a government official who wants to do a certain kind of prayer before their meeting.
The tone I'm getting from you is we should not get mad about that stuff.
I'm not saying we should get mad. I am frustrated because the shit that I think is worth getting mad about, you're so even-keeled.
But
and
the
then
stuff
this
you get mad about,
genuine
not
nonsense.
You. The stuff we get mad about, rightly so, in your opinion, which we should get mad about, I think that stuff happens when stuff like this, which is small potatoes, when anyone lets this stuff slide or they get away with it, that's the reason all the bigger shit happens.
Which is fair.
So this is the thing. You got to stop this. Not you. This, like Sarah Huckabee Sanders needs to stop this shit now. Right. And I'm glad AU called her out on it and all that. And I think this would be an obvious bigger story if she was not a Christian. I think that would be obvious too.
Sure. But I feel genuine. And this is not me criticizing our podcast or you, who is the person who compiles this. I'm not criticizing you. I'm just... To me, when these stories come to us, it's like, genuinely, it's Mad Libs. It's, X person who happens to be Christian who is in authority, wants to do a prayer, draw a cross, hang in God we trust. But, like, it's just this story over and over again. And I'm not saying it's not something worth paying attention to. And I'm not saying it's not worth bringing up. I guess, for me, I so rarely see you get actively like agitated.
I'm saving it for later.
I wonder though, is it just because I'm not reacting enough and you feel like you have to like
yes,
compensate
probably.
That?
Sarah Huckabee Sanders also did this in responding to AU. She said, despite the cross imagery, she said, all people of all faiths are welcome in the governor's mansion, which, by the way, the phrasing of that does exclude...
Why would she lie about her kids making that, though? That's the thing that's really going to fuck my shit up for years.
If she says all people of all faiths are welcome, that technically excludes atheists.
Yeah, I heard it.
By the way, she also said, we are one nation under God in her letter, which not only excludes atheists, that really does exclude all non-Christians, too, the way she says that. That's the thing.
You don't have to convince me that she's a fucking dickbag. You do not have to convince me that Sarah Huckabee Sanders is the villain. I've heard it before. Like, how many times can I hear this kind of thing of, oh, this is Christian persecution?
I think it's what it represents. Here's someone who has no pushback. It's certainly not in Arkansas where Republicans run the state. She gets no pushback for this stuff. She gets away with it. And then it just becomes a thing governors do.
100%.
And that's the thing. It's like, if we don't get mad about this, then it's going to keep getting worse. It is worse. We're going to talk about worse. Well, but it's like, no, you should get mad about, not you. people should get mad about this shit because that's how the bigger things happen.
Which is, you're right. I completely concede that point. And this is the same conversation we had 10 years ago, probably not on a podcast because it didn't exist, but about what's the thing with Jesus and Christmas? What's it called when Jesus was born and Mary and Joseph and there's donkeys and it's a barn?
The nativity.
Nativity. Wow, I couldn't find it at all.
Where they put those
Nativities
up in
on
City
Hall and things like that.
Also deserve to be called out?
Also deserve to be called out. And also and I felt at the time and still do now, I hate doing this shit.
Hate doing it because it's small potatoes, but if you look at where Christian
not
nationalism
just because
is
it's
now,
small potatoes, because it makes us look like fucking Scrooges, and they know that. They know that, like, anytime they push buttons, anything we as atheists are like, oh, so you hate Christmas? You hate family? Oh, you hate snow?
I think that's part of what annoyed me about the story. It's her smug, annoying response to all this
because she's a smug and annoying
of course
person.
She is. I think it's because, you wrote the mildest, politest letter. Because there's no nice way to tell a Christian nationalist, hey, please don't be a Christian nationalist.
Right.
Everything is persecution for those people.
Right.
So there is no nice way to do it. You found a nice way to do it anyway. And her response is, oh, how dare you? Like, that was the game plan all
so
along.
Par for the course.
But that was the right move from AU.
Yeah.
It should go away. It's not a lawsuit-worthy thing. It's just one of those, why are you doing this? At least get it on the record that you do not care about all non-Christians, because that's the message you're sending here.
I mean, listen, you're right, and I don't disagree with you, but saying, let's get it on the record that she's anti-atheist, like, dog, it's on the record. She doesn't fucking like us and doesn't believe we're real Americans. Like, we don't need to keep a log for every time she reinforces
because no one else is going to talk about this.
Well, that's fair enough. It just
You're
means
really
that
not going to like the next one.
I have to talk about this every week, and sometimes it's kind of emotional.
You don't have to talk. I'll do it for you
We're
here.
coming off of 4th of July, which I find to be a deeply emotionally draining holiday, especially ever since 2020, when for some reason people in the Chicago suburbs just set off fireworks for a month straight at the beginning of COVID. And now my dog is fucking terrified of them. So thanks, D-bags. I fucking hate fireworks.
Speaking of D-bags. All right. I don't think you're going to like this story either. All right.
I don't like any of the stories.
On July 4th, Republican Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri tweeted this out. He's still a senator. His wife was one of the attorneys working on that Lori Smith makes a Christian website, but she doesn't want to do wedding websites for gay couples. She was one of the lawyers for her.
The Supreme Court on. Are we going to go over the things that we lost later?
No.
We went over them last week.
We
lost
them.
But
his wife is one of the attorneys for that side. Just obvious. Anyway, Josh Hawley tweeted this out. It's an obligatory quotation from a founding father on Independence Day. He just said, here's the tweet. Patrick Henry, : It cannot be emphasized too strongly or too often that this great nation was founded not by religionists, but by Christians. Not on religions, but on the gospel of Jesus Christ. For this very reason, peoples of other faiths have been afforded asylum, prosperity, and freedom of worship here. Basically
he said, give me liberty or give me death.
And basically, Josh Hawley's implication here is because America was founded on Christianity, that's why the rest of you peasants have freedom of religion. You could thank a Christian for that. So that's the quotation he tweeted.
Always, my question is, so fucking what?
Yeah, that's part of it
like,
too.
We're not here we're not here at the pleasure of the Christians. That's not how any of this works.
So 2 problems with everything he did.
Okay.
He said that.
Just 2.
Just 2.
Congratulations.
Yes. First problem. It implies that Christianity is foundational to our country's history. Like Jesus wrapped himself in the American flag and then blessed all the colonies during the war.
That was the 3rd act of Jesus Christ Superstar. And then that's a wild
Then he went back in time and ascended to heaven. And it also suggests that Christians have always welcomed and accepted non-Christians instead of subjugating them.
Classically, Christians are really good at just embracing people and meeting them where they are and speaking to them in their language.
I feel like indigenous people have very different ideas about that one. But
yeah, you think?
But also, this is a sort of revisionist bullshit history you expect from like David Barton. Yeah, and not from a credible source. Like
nemesis.
Yeah, there were founders who were some form of Christian, yes. But a lot of them were deists and did not believe in Christianity the way these guys do.
This is the shit that frustrates me because I learned that they were deists in like high school. I learned what deism was because of the founding fathers and was intrigued by it and genuinely might have led me down a path of religion. But I was like, this is too Christian. I don't
And by the way,
it.
none of those people practice like evangelical zealotry that the mega Christians practice today.
When's the last time I've talked about Thomas Jefferson's Bible?
You
the
do it
Jefferson
every week.
Bible. I'm going to tell it again because we have new listeners. Listen, TJ, Thomas Jefferson, you know him. He famously thought that Jesus was a very good teacher and had a lot of moral things to teach us, but he thought the magic was nonsense. And so I had the privilege, actually at recent rally, I had the privilege of seeing a copy of of one of the Jefferson Bibles because my dude took a straight razor to the parts of the Bible that were magical. And because he had no fucking time for it. He wanted to learn the morality lessons and he didn't want anybody to be like, oh, but if you pray, you do this. And if anything explains the founding fathers' view of religion, I can't think of a better example.
Right.
Can you?
This country was in no sense founded on the gospel of Jesus Christ.
I just would love to hear a conservative be like, Thomas Jefferson wasn't technically a founding father or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so obvious.
The history of like American Christianity it's full of exclusion, it's full of slavery, it's full of the subjugation of various minority groups. So like
it's colonialization in a nutshell.
Even in principle, Hawley's tweet made no sense. Like, why would you use that quotation to say anything?
Wait, say the quote again. I forgot what we were talking about.
Basically, we were founded not by random religious people seeking religious freedom.
Mm-hmm.
No. It was Christians.
Yeah.
We were founded on Jesus. Anyway, so that's the first problem. In principle, none of that makes any sense. Second problem, Patrick Henry never said that shit.
Really?
Never. Okay, let me take you down a rabbit hole.
Did he really say give me liberty or give me death?
He did say that one.
Thank
Let me take you
Christ.
down the rabbit hole here.
I got my face.
In 1956.
Okay.
Which, by the way, Patrick Henry was dead.
after his death.
Yeah, he was a slave-owning Christian and he was dead by this
And a
point.
founding father, I think, for timeline purposes.
Long dead. There was an outlet called The Virginian. It was pro-segregation.
Oh, cool.
1956. They published...
1956 pro-segregation.
Oh, yeah.
Cool look, guys.
They published a piece about Patrick Henry, and a segment of that piece was... The reason we know that is because another magazine called the American Mercury, they had a little filler material on a page of their magazine, and they were like, hey, this was printed in the Virginian like a few months ago, so we wanted to excerpt it right here. And I have a screenshot of the American Mercury. You don't even need to look at it. But in the little box, here's what they say. They show Patrick Henry, who, by the way, was Christian and very open about it. There's a line from his will, like, I've given you people in my family everything I have. If there's anything else I wish I could give you, it's the Christian religion. Some BS like that. Fine. But after they
would have liked money more.
After they quote what he wrote in his will, there is commentary by whoever wrote the article for the Virginian.
Oh, I see.
Where it says the following. There is an insidious campaign of false propaganda being waged today to the effect that our country is not a Christian country, but a religious one. That it was not founded on Christianity, but on freedom of religion. That's what the writer...
As if that's the scare quotes that he has.
And then it's the writer for the Virginian who says... It cannot be emphasized too strongly or too often that this great nation was founded not by religionists, but by Christians, yada, yada, yada. And then the last paragraph here says, in the spoken and written words of our noble founders and forefathers, we find symbolic expressions of their Christian faith. The above quotation...
Symbolic expressions? Because David Martin
symbolic.
told me it's pretty obvious.
We'll get back there.
Oh.
The above quotation from the will of Patrick Henry is a notable example of the founders espousing their Christianity.
Of a journalist talking about their opinions.
So just to be clear,
mid-20th
Patrick Henry, yes, he was Christian. No one's doubting that. He spoke about it very, like, it was on his sleeves. He wore it on his sleeves.
Sure.
Fine.
Which is fine.
But he didn't say the thing that has Patrick Henry and then quotation marks inside of it. That wasn't Patrick Henry speaking.
Okay.
That was a dude who wanted to use Patrick Henry to advance some other agenda.
So
okay.
an ignorant dum-dum used another ignorant dum-dum's words, contributing them to a third, probably smarter
Something
person.
like this. Okay.
So
Yes.
this is a third-hand mistake.
So that was 1956. Okay? Sure.
Oh, God, there's more?
So, where did this get into the popular ideology here that, like, Patrick Henry said this? Well, in 1989, there was a book called The Myth of Separation. Guess who wrote that book?
Is it David Barton?
It is
it
David
his debut
Barton.
novel?
I don't know if it's his
nonfiction book.
I don't know if it's his first book, but it was an early book. But here's what it says. I'm quoting from David Barton's book here. Patrick Henry was largely responsible for the adoption of the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, now known as the Bill of Rights. Since Patrick Henry...
Largely personally responsible?
Largely responsible.
I feel like it was
Anyway,
a group.
since Patrick Henry was a driving force behind the First Amendment, did he see it as separating church and state? How did he feel about mixing public affairs with Christianity? Then David Barton quotes that bit and attributes it to Patrick Henry.
Wait, are you telling me that David Barton probably willfully misquoted a founding father to progress his own means?
Not only that, that quotation comes with a little footnote number. So
Tell me what it says.
If you
He
look up
cited it.
He cited it. What's the citation?
Tell me.
The citation goes to a 1988 book
One
by
Year
a
Prior?
guy named Steve Dawson. And according to David Barton, the book written by Steve C. Dawson is called God's Providence in American History. Guess what?
What?
There's no book of that name. It doesn't exist.
Wait,
Now-
what?
Now,
I was gonna. What was the name? Dawson? John Dawson?
Steve Dawson.
Dawson does sound like a generic superhero name.
There is a book, I will say, with a similar title, which I assume is what Barton was referring
Dawson?
to, by Dawson. But it's a different title similar to it. But again, I can't read it online because I don't think there's any copies of that. So I don't know what Steve Dawson wrote. I don't know how innocent or not innocent of a mistake David Barton made.
Ooh,
But-
okay, actually,
but-
listen, before we get into whatever you're going to say, I just need a moment, like 30 seconds to talk about what it means to be a historian and do these things.
Yes.
So, boy, oh boy. Okay, when you are interviewing somebody, that is a first connection, right? Like, what's the word?
First-hand source.
First-hand source. Thank you. I
Yes.
could not find hand. It's a first-hand source, right? So if I say, I asked Hemmett
A primary
about...
source, if
primary
you will.
source. I asked Hemmett about Hemmett, and he said this. That's my primary source. And then as that moves away, and then I told my friend Susie, hey, Hemmett said this about that, that's a secondhand source, right? I heard from Hemmett's friend about this. The important reason that we talk about first, second, third-hand sources is because we journalists, not a journalist, I want to be very clear, me, not a journalist, I'm just a writer. We as journalists, though, have a responsibility to report the truth as well as they know it, and therefore, basically,
And
we
check
need
your
to
friggin' sources.
check your sources. And if you get a book that quotes somebody, you need to look in that book and find that book's source until you find the primary source, whether it's him writing it down or a firsthand account of Patrick Henry. Patrick
And
Henry
David
said
Barton's
this.
whole thing, David Barton's whole shtick is he only cares about primary sources. He
Are
doesn't.
you sure?
Yes.
Because what you just read to me wasn't that.
David Barton says, I always read the primary sources because your history books are lying to you. They're filtering the material. I
no,
suggest
you're
you read
confused
the
again.
primary source. And yet here he is citing some other guy's book and then getting it wrong.
I just
David
it's such
Barton.
a specious argument to be like, primary sources, because even if he took those works, we know, okay, I can go from here to there of like the result
The story gets
is
better later.
the result is he's making up some bullshit that's about how Christianity is actually the only way you can be American, and he's going back to these sources, and there's lots of writings and contemporaneous writings about the founding fathers. So it's pretty fucking easy to pick through that and find things that support your... It's like a reality show, right?
yeah.
Like, you can pick any clips to support your plot.
Edit it however you want.
Oh my God. Can we do a series about, like, history as reality television, and whoever's, like, producing and ending it gets to tell their story?
Bonus
I think that would be
material.
interesting. Oh, I would have to do
So
work,
guess
though.
what?
Yeah. What?
Guess who else spread it? The
Oh.
same
Huckabee
misattributed quotation from Patrick Henry.
Sarah
who-
Huckabee Sanders.
In 2011,
In 2011?
Newt Gingrich writes a book called A Nation Like No Other, Why American Exceptionalism Matters.
I think Newt Gingrich is second only to Ronald Reagan as the person who fucking destroyed politics in the latter half of the 20th century.
Here's Newt Gingrich. Consider the following quotes by some of our...
Newt, and we're all just chill with that?
Consider the following quotes by some of our most notable founders, who not only openly articulated their own commitment to Christianity, but their belief that it was only a moral and religious people who could sustain a government of, by, and for the people. And one of the options, one of the bullet points he gives here, the same Patrick Henry who proclaimed, "Give me liberty or give me death," also said, "It cannot be emphasized too strongly or too often," yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. And then there's a footnote, because Newt Gingrich or his ghostwriter, was getting this from somewhere.
Where did he get that?
So what's the footnote?
This is what reporting looks like, ladies and gentlemen. It's really boring.
I checked this book out from the Internet Archive, damn it, to see where the footnote was.
You FOIA'd that shit.
Yes, exactly. Gingrich just cites some random article on a random website. He just Googled it. He's like, found it.
What year was this book from?
2011.
Oh, 2011. I was thinking it was like 2002, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
the point is
hysterical.
All of these people. Are you telling
me that the people who aren't intellectually honest are also plagiarizers and do not research their shit?
They definitely don't know how to research shit. David Barton famously doesn't know how to research shit, and he gets called out on it all the time, and then he keeps parroting the lies because Christians believe it.
Fucking much.
Now, here's the thing.
I hate when people use religion as a cudgel because they misunderstand it or choose to misunderstand it. Fuck those guys. Go ahead.
All these people are spreading the same lie, same quote to suit their agenda.
It's the whole party line, my dude. Why are you surprised?
It should be telling that these guys have to resort to a lie to defend their version of the nation's history. But here's my favorite bit about this. Recently, guess the undisputed king of Christian batshittery, David Barton himself, now says on his website that quotation was falsely attributed to Patrick Henry.
He admitted he was
wrong? It. And he says on his website now, David Barton, until more definitive documentation can be presented, please avoid the words in question. He's saying, look, I can't find the source material where Patrick Henry said this. It's because he never said it. So David Barton's well, until I can find the source material, maybe don't spread that particular line. Even David freaking Barton found a way to say, I shouldn't have said that.
Okay, not to defend Josh Hawley at all, but I hope David Barton does more research into his terrible books than fucking Josh Hawley does, and we're tweeting a meme. Listen, I know we should hold our representatives in higher standard, but I don't. And so, yeah, of course this idiot retweeted a fake quote without even bothering to wonder if it was real. He didn't even think about it.
And that's exactly my first thought. He didn't think about it. Someone told him this quotation. He tweeted it.
Doesn't matter to them.
Once you find out David Barton is beating you in a battle of ethics, that's the time you say, you guys, I was wrong, that it wasn't him that said it, but the principle still stands. I thought that's where he would go with this.
You're mistaking them because they are in a race to the bottom.
Yes. So what did Josh Hawley do after a gazillion by the way, 2 million people viewed his false tweet, according to Twitter. I don't know if the view count matters there, but 2 million people allegedly saw it. Are we going to talk about
Twitter in the bonus?
Bonus, yes. So here's the thing. How did Hawley respond after all these people called him out?
Haters gonna hate.
On the lie. Here's what he said.
Of Taylor Swift saying haters
even
gonna
better.
hate,
even better.
Hate.
No. Here's what he went with.
Brutal.
I am told the libs are major triggered by the...
Sorry, major triggered?
Unquote. I'm told the libs are major triggered by the connection between the Bible and the American founding. For example, quote, the Declaration of Independence first organized the social compact on the foundation of the Redeemer's mission on earth, unquote, John Quincy Adams.
What's the Redeemer's mission on earth?
Jesus. But he's saying there is a connection between the Bible and the American founding. He does not apologize for the Patrick Henry quote. He doesn't even admit it was wrong. He says there was a connection at the beginning of our country. John Quincy Adams even said it. Here's the thing. In 1776,
post-truth society.
In 1776, Guess how old John Quincy Adams was?
1776. Oh my God, no, he wouldn't have even been born because John
9.
Adams.
He was 9 years old. John Quincy Adams
John
was
Adams
9.
was his
You would
his
think
dad.
Josh Hawley,
I mean,
who
listen,
just published...
From the mouth of babes, am I right? Your kids have said some wise things to me, like, my dad's an idiot.
There you go. Unquote.
Was that
you
a
would
good
think,
joke?
not even close. That was just mean. You would think Josh Hawley, who just published a book called, do you know what his title of his book is?
Truth is everything.
Manhood.
Oh, no.
Yeah, wokeism was taken. So you would think a guy who's like,
he
here's
just
what it
called
takes
hashtag canceled, dude. Like,
with duct tape over his mouth for
oh
the
my
picture.
God,
Yeah.
so brave.
You would think a guy who publishes a book about how to be a man could at least apologize for making a mistake, but no, apologizing is for the woke. By the way,
36 years,
Josh Hawley.
37. How old am I?
I don't know anymore. 30.
My 37 years of interacting with men says to me that they never admit when they're wrong, and if they do, they want a medal for it.
There you go. This is Josh Hawley, honors history major at Stanford, graduate of Yale Law School.
Wait, really?
Can't do basic research.
Wait, he's like legit smart? Or is he a legacy?
It's all an act. John Kennedy, the senator from Louisiana right now, same thing. He's like an Oxford sort of, yeah.
I mean, listen, being educated doesn't mean you're smart.
But these guys are
nor does it
purposely
mean
stupid.
you have any
These guys are purposely stupid.
Or are they smart enough to bend quote unquote facts into their favor? And
Josh Hawley is one of those guys where he knows exactly what he's doing. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene, no, she's just dumb. Lauren Boebert, just dumb.
Yeah.
Josh Hawley, no, he's just playing this up.
Yeah, I feel like that is we talk a lot, or I bring up a lot about eyes open versus eyes closed. Like, are you spouting bullshit? Are your eyes open? Do you know you're scamming people? Or are you eyes closed? You genuinely believe all this nonsense.
No, I don't think he's a true believer.
So you think he's eyes
playing
open.
a game.
And truly, this is, if anybody ever meets me in public, all I want to talk about is whether any given person is eyes open or eyes closed. Because it's just like, to me, the most interesting like plumbing of like mental depths.
There's a historian, Kevin Cruz, who put it this way. I really liked it. To be sure, it's fun to counter Hawley's grasping search for a historical soulmate with the more prominent and important writings of Washington, Adams, Jefferson, and others that so clearly refute his ideas. But it's better, I think, this is Kevin Cruz, it's better, I think, to brush aside these politicians and partisans who cherry-pick their way through the founding era and simply remind them that in the Constitution of the United States, you know, the document that actually founded the country and established its rules and norms, none of their wish-casting for a Christian nation finds any support at all.
I mean, it's so well, that's so well stated, is even if David Burton is 100% right, and all of the Christians...
Is not.
Is not. I want to be very clear. Is not. Even if all of the founding fathers were deeply religious, listen, you guys, y'all, David Bartons of the world, you can't laud the founding fathers for being this like weird, omnipotent group of 24-year-olds. And also say like, oh, well, they said this, but they meant this. Wink, wink, wink. Like, you have to, and this is a conservative thing that happens very frequently, and it's a thing that when people are wrong, they tend to do, is find any exit they can, right? Even if it's not intellectually honest, and even if it disagrees with something they said in a minute before. The founding fathers were super, super Christian and were really declarative about it. Oh, no. They were really Christian, but didn't talk about it because they knew they weren't allowed to talk about it. Like, you cannot have it both ways.
How did Josh Hawley spend July 4th, the day our democracy was technically born? Promoting theocracy. There you go. All right. I saved the best story for you now.
Oh, boy.
I've been waiting a week.
No.
Are you waiting? Are you ready for this?
Oh,
okay,
boy.
I'm going to tell you a story.
I'm nervous. I'm sweating.
So in May of 2022, it was the last week of school at a place.
2022. Okay, so like
a year ago.
Yeah.
It was the last week of school at Sky Ridge High School in Lehigh, Utah. Random public high school.
It's gonna be in the Rockies.
Yep.
They love seeing Sky.
And here's the thing: last week of school at a big public high school, administrators have a lot of shit to do.
Yeah.
They got to
And
wrap up
students have
grades.
Nothing to do.
Students have nothing to do.
It's
They're
a
done.
nightmare.
You've taken your AP test. You've taken your
fully
finals.
Lord of the Flies.
Yeah. So the school's administrators are kind of lenient when it comes to things like attendance. Because, like, listen, if a kid misses school, they're not missing out on a lot of important stuff. Yeah,
whatever.
So staff wasn't checked out though. Like, the point of the leniency is that students could meet with their teachers at the end of the year to discuss grades. Teachers can wrap up their end of the year paperwork, which they have a lot to do. Fine. But one of the days in that last week of school, a mother of a student came to the school to pick up her son, I guess early to check him out or something, and no one could find him.
Yep.
He wasn't in the classroom on his schedule, and he didn't respond to an announcement over the intercom. So she's like, where's my son?
Oh,
He's
shit.
supposed to be at school. She only found her son. We'll call him JD, like John Doe. We'll call him JD. She only found him because the mother texted his girlfriend, like, hey, where's my son? And the girlfriend's like, oh, we're hanging out in the parking lot, like a lot of students, I assume, were. So, like,
Okay.
they went to the parking
Does
lot.
this kid not have his own cell phone?
I don't know.
Okay.
But anyway, so here's the question I'll pose to you first. Did school officials do anything wrong here?
I don't know how old this person is.
High school, let's say senior. I'm making that
But
up. I
is
don't know.
he 18 or is he 17? That's a huge difference.
I don't know.
I mean,
I'm going to assume child. I'll say
so
16
we'll
or
say
17.
minor. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't remember if I know his age.
I would say yes and no. Like, certainly it is a school's responsibility to sort of keep track of their kids,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not babysitters. And there is probably, a staff member per 30 kids.
Yeah.
And it's unreasonable to expect somebody to have eyes on kids the whole time.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think you can
And
make
he
a
was on the
case.
property, so it
He was
doesn't
on the
feel
property.
like a huge issue.
I think you could make a case either way. Like, should they have done more? Yeah. The school even said, like, later on, yeah, we probably should have done a better job of keeping their eye on all the
Anybody
kids.
who's been in like this kind of thing that like, ooh, in hindsight, we should have taken this
Mm-hmm.
more seriously. Those first beats,
Yeah.
there's no way you're gonna be like, oh my god, we have to go on lockdown because Brandon is missing.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Okay. Was he
The mother
praying
and
or
father-
fucking something?
The mother and father just filed a lawsuit against the school district. This was a while ago. This was shortly after that. They filed a lawsuit against the school district claiming that the unsupervised time when their son was in the parking lot, that violated the free exercise of their Mormon faith. What? What? What?
Wait, hold on. Wait.
They
Let me
said,
process that
you
for a
were
second.
not supervising our kid.
So the kid not be I think can I guess the kid not being supervised like in their Mormon faith, a minor cannot be with a girl unsupervised by an adult, and therefore this kid was out in the parking lot probably with girls, and there was no person present, so he was
Close.
unchaperoned.
Close.
That's my guess.
They found out
Oh,
somehow
God.
that JD and his girlfriend had sex multiple times that week in the parking lot, and premarital sex went against their religion. So they were blaming the school for allowing their son to be unsupervised and allowing him indirectly to have the free time
And
to
a
have sex with
judge
his
said,
girlfriend.
"Yeah, this is a super chill lawsuit for sure."
Here's the news. Here's why we're
That
talking
is
about
a
it now.
bananas lawsuit.
Totally bananas lawsuit. The judge, a federal judge,
federal
yeah,
judge?
This went federal court. They have now tossed out the lawsuit.
Thank fucking Christ.
And that's the ruling I read. And that ruling was downright hilarious.
me.
Basically,
Tell me
because the
everything.
judge kind of documented the case history here, right?
Okay.
And you find out how batshit crazy these parents are.
Tell-
Here's the thing.
Okay.
To be clear, Mormon Church does urge abstinence before marriage. And in the case of these parents, they learned their son was doing it anyway. Even apparently they knew he was having sex before the parking lot stuff. And they were like, oh, no, you can't do this. And then they found out he was also having sex during the school day. Oh, my favorite thing about this, when they found out he was having
they're suing
sex.
over lack of supervision.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they already knew at the time he had premarital sex with his
Okay.
girlfriend. So they placed restrictions on him. They said, you always have to have a chaperone if you're around your girlfriend.
There it is.
And by the way, you can only travel to and from school with a sibling. And guess what? Their kid found a way around all that shit because
Wow,
he's
it's
a teenager.
so wild because
Surprise.
never in the history of humanity has a kid disobeyed their parents in order to hook up with a person.
Uh-huh. So let me quote you from the judge
Not
here.
me.
Oh,
Nobody
it's
wanted
so
to hook up with me though. Go ahead.
Let me quote you from this judge here, Jill Parrish,
Yeah.
U.S. District Judge. The family's called in the legal brief the Does. The Does cannot wield the constitutional right to parent as a sword to require the district to adopt policies that help them to direct and control their son's choices.
Mwah. Beautiful work.
The school district did not coerce JD into acting against his religious beliefs. He freely chose to have premarital sex with his girlfriend, even though this was against the teachings of his religion. The school the
was a
school
public school,
custom
right?
yes
Okay.
the school custom of giving students unsupervised time after being released early from class during the last week of school applies equally to all students regardless of religion. Therefore, it's neutral and generally applicable.
Yeah.
So they weren't like going after Mormons by
This
giving
got
him
to a
free time.
Federal court?
Got to federal
Is
court.
that just on basis of the allegations, or did it get like appealed up? I don't know the court
I
system
think they
very
said you
well.
violated like the U.S. Constitution,
I
so we
see.
got to go to a federal court.
Okay.
But basically, the judge is like, the district's policies were neutral. The
Yeah.
district did not like say, let's go after the Mormons.
Wait, can you help
And
me
the school
understand?
was under no obligation to force your kid to follow your religious faith. That's not the school's job.
What?
That's your job as parents if you want it to be.
I'm genuinely confused what they were suing over.
They were saying
Of-
by
of-
not watching our sons, by giving him all this free time, the school like gave him the chance to violate his religious beliefs, and we're blaming you.
So they
for
think a
violating
school
our
is
faith.
essentially a prison?
They think that if their religion says you got to be chaperoned, you can't be alone, then the school's responsibility is to back you up on that. And
Which
the
is
judge
insane.
and the judge is like, yeah, that's insane. It's not the
That's
school's
absolute
job
bananas.
to make sure your kid follows your religious beliefs.
And
That's on
genuinely,
your kid.
Nor is it that they are going to be super. I feel like the expectation of my kid is going to be under the watchful eye of an adult 24/7 if they're in this building is not
It's not how any school works.
reasonable. And I sort of fucking God, have you guys seen any movies that took place in the 20th century? Because everybody smokes in the bathroom in high schools, apparently. Again, was not invited to do so.
Now, the judge, however, did say, okay, on the case of negligence, was the school negligent? The family claimed the district breached their duty of care and caused their son emotional distress.
Excuse me?
That's what the family
The
said.
school caused him
Yes.
emotional distress, or his parents who are hosting a lawsuit over his sexual activities as a teenager, which is
Basically-
I think teenagers are all really chill about their sex life and are really happy to talk about it and have a lot of people know about it. So definitely it was the school that was causing harm.
So the
right?
judge is saying if you're arguing they violated your religious beliefs, that's bullshit. I'm tossing that out. If you're saying the school was negligent, which is not a religious argument here, fine. But the district says we have liability from based on state law. So the federal judge said, all right, fine, then take that issue to a state court. That's not my
Sure.
job. So the case isn't dead, but the religious aspect of it is absolutely dead. To me, it seemed like the parents were just looking for someone or
yeah.
anyone to blame for the fact that their religious rules were not working because their kid didn't give a damn about them.
I mean, it's such a good example of the way kind of religious people view the world of we're imparting these quote unquote values on our children, which are to go against most of humanity, right? Like to not have sex and not feel those feelings of attraction. And when that doesn't work for some fucking reason, they need to lash out because it's certainly not their fault. They
Yeah.
did what the Bible said. That's all they could do. Their pastor said they were doing the right thing. It's the kid that's the problem.
The kid apparently thinks having sex with his girlfriend is more important than following the tenets of Mormonism,
Listen,
which,
yeah, dog.
all right. So the parents are suing the school. They sued the school district. I'm glad the judge at least tossed it
Like,
out.
given
but,
the
like,
option, would I rather have sex or be religious? I would choose sex, but I mean, not everybody has my values.
because you're weird like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, exactly.
I'm the one person in America who values sex over religion.
Yeah, there
Don't
you
tell
go.
anybody, guys. I'll get fired. There's morality clauses in all of my contracts.
All right, we got to talk about something serious here.
No.
Yes. Okay, so get this. In Sweden, about a week ago, when there was a Muslim celebration, it was a holiday in Islam, a man in Sweden, his last name is Momika, I think I'm pronouncing that right, basically a troll, a right-wing troll. This guy was standing outside the Stockholm Central Mosque in Sweden with a copy of the Qur'an, waving it tearing it up. He took a strip of bacon, he's live streaming all this, by the way. Took a strip of bacon, puts it in the book, sets that on fire. By the way, he is an Iraqi Christian who is a refugee to Sweden, but also like a troll. And he was protesting because he just doesn't like Islam and he wants the book banned or something like that. So here's the thing. He's doing this in front of the mosque. Everyone around at the time, because again, this is densely populated because it's a Muslim holiday. All the Muslims around are like, we're not giving this dude attention.
Sure.
We're not reacting to this shit. Like, he can do what he wants.
Yeah.
Legally, he has the right to do it, but like, we're not reacting to it.
It's like that
right?
preacher in front of the Old Navy for a long time in the Loop. Remember that guy? Do you remember that guy?
I
Short black
know
guy
who
with
you
a
were talking
little
about.
tiny microphone and box, and he would talk about how like gay people or whatever, and if you'd see somebody smoking, he'd be like, "Oh, smoking's for the devil." And
It's like all those campus preachers.
and
like,
it was truly like
do you want to engage or do you want to ignore?
it was in the heart of the Loop in Chicago, and every single human being just ignored him because it's easy to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
this
here's
is
the
happening
thing:
there.
whenever Christians pull the same stunt, like their objective is always to get a reaction, not really to destroy an object so much. Like Greg Locke recently, that hate preacher, he did like on Halloween a book burning where he's like, Harry Potter books are going in the fire. It's like,
And truly, that shit, like, fine, do it.
Yeah.
You look much better than anybody could make you look. If you think this is the right thing to
and
do,
if you think
congrats.
liberals are freaking out because Harry Potter books are being burned,
You
haven't
have
paid.
not been on Twitter for like 8 years.
Anyway, so if, like, listen, if this guy wanted to make a point, he could have burned it anywhere, but
Yeah.
he chose to do it in front of a mosque. He
Of
was
course.
trying to be
For greatest
provocative.
effect, yeah.
Yes. But here's the thing. That should have been the end of it because, like, no one there cared. Yeah, he has a legal right to do it, arguably, but, like, it's stupid. It's not strategic for whatever he was trying to do. But that act has now flamed like a global controversy.
Flamed?
Inflamed? Yes. A global controversy because it's to the point where Sweden's entry into NATO may be delayed because of this controversy.
Fuck off. Or you can.
Yeah.
Wait, really?
I'll give you some background on this. Like, if you don't, I had to
Why is
dig
Sweden
back in
getting
this.
into NATO?
We'll
North
talk.
American
We'll talk. So,
Okay.
North Atlantic.
North
but
Atlantic,
the,
that's it.
like a decade ago, do you remember this guy, Terry Jones? He was a Florida pastor who announced plans that to like commemorate 9/11, he was going to destroy 3,000 copies of the Quran.
Yes.
It was a long time
What
ago.
year would that have been?
That
was it
was-
like 10 years?
Ish,
The 10-year
yeah.
anniversary?
Something like
Yeah,
that.
that was
He
probably
had-
early in
he
my
had
friendly atheist days.
Done it in the past under the mistaken belief that Muslims wanted to impose Sharia law. That was the Obama era, like,
Oh, God. I
controversy.
haven't heard them yell
I know, it's a
Sharia
while.
law in a minute.
yeah, it's like the caravan van.
And
It comes and
weird-
goes when
sure,
the Republicans
and weirdly,
wanted
they're
to.
the ones who are fully trying to enforce like sexual and moral laws onto people, and don't see the irony there.
They don't see the irony. But basically,
day.
Terry Jones, this pastor, a decade ago, he was actually urged not to do it, not just by U.S. politicians, but also military leaders who said, if you pull this shit, yeah, you have a First Amendment right to burn these books. But if you do it, we have American troops in Afghanistan and Iraq. You are putting them in harm's way.
Yeah,
and
but he wants to make a point, Hammond.
I know, they urged him not to do it. And actually, like a day before he was gonna do it, probably, he was arrested for like unrelated reasons, so it never
Wink, wink,
happened.
wink.
Wink, wink. Yeah. Anyway, that like this sort of thing happens where these
Really?
Christian extremists are like, I'm gonna do this to just piss off Muslims. But here's the thing.
And that doesn't make the news very much, does
Doesn't-
it?
not
like
anymore.
international radical Christians,
Right?
not very frequent. And when it happens in the U.S., we just
And
ignore that they're white and Christian.
yeah, and the reason people are opposed to this sort of stunt, it's not about restricting free speech. That with Terry Jones a decade ago, it wasn't like a no, you should be allowed to do it because it's free speech. Let's all burn any holy book we want. Let's burn a flag in our free time. It's not a free speech issue in this case. It's about why are you trying to antagonize peaceful Muslims more than anything else? That's the part that a lot of critics, at least of this case, of the guy in Sweden, the critics were like, yeah, I guess you can do it. But why? What are you trying to accomplish here? Because the only people who are really going to get riled up about this are Muslims who aren't hurting you.
Yeah.
So, like, why? What is your strategy here? So,
This is an interesting case, and I actually I literally had already written it down. I wrote down flag burning
Yeah.
because I just listened to a podcast about the Supreme Court landing on Texas versus something about Texas
While you
versus
are-
Johnson.
Yeah.
But all that's to say is it's all about people who are pro or anti-flag burning. It's evocative, right? It's
Yeah.
provocative.
yeah,
And
I support your right to do it. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm like, yeah, let's all go do it because we can. Just because you can do something doesn't make it a good idea.
You know what it puts me in mind of is that trend that happened maybe 5 years ago when a bunch of people would just walk into like a fucking Burger King with an AR-15 to be like, it's an open carry. You don't have a right to be scared of this giant death machine I had. Do you remember that trend of?
Oh, it's still happening at like Starbucks. You see pictures of people like this guy's packed.
They used to do it like a quote unquote protest.
But that's the point. Like you can do it, but what are you trying to accomplish?
That's
You're
what I'm
just
trying to
piss
draw a
off
line
liberals.
to. But there are some things that like we not you and I, but there was like Draw Muhammad Day to be like.
We're getting to that.
Oh, okay. Am I getting too smart for your commentary?
That's exactly right.
getting
And
ahead
the
of
thing is, look, if this was a free speech argument,
Sure.
we could have that conversation about drawing Muhammad. We could have a lot of different conversations about, like, if someone's trying to stifle free speech and they're going after the censorship of all that, we'd be having a different conversation. That's not the conversation most people are having with this dude in Sweden.
No.
It's really just,
Well, also it's in Sweden, so the First Amendment
what are
doesn't
you
apply.
doing? Yeah, right. It's not there, but they do have a right to free expression. In Sweden, there is a right to free expression. Okay. And here's the line that politicians are trying to carve out here. So the Prime Minister of Sweden, Ulf Kristersson, he said last week very bluntly, it's legal, but not appropriate.
Sure.
And the thing is, yeah, you're right. Not exactly a defense of freedom of expression right there, but I get your position.
He did not say a word wrong.
Yeah. His concern is that there are right now, to get into NATO and make sure you have the U.S. and all of the allies backing you in the case of a war, which is Ukraine is trying to get into NATO right now, and they're not in. Finland, I believe, just got in finally, but you need a unanimous approval from every member country. And right now, Sweden's not in NATO. Why? 2 countries are saying no, Turkey and Hungary.
Because they're anti-Muslim? Or perceived as anti-Muslim?
Because Sweden, that's one reason.
That's right, Sweden.
But Turkey specifically, which has a Muslim population, the fear now is that Turkey's going to use this incident to further hold up Sweden's entry into NATO, basically using one dude's stupid-ass protest to block membership for the entire country.
Well, that speaks more poorly to international politics than it does to this idiot.
A U.S. State Department official...
Don't you think?
A U.S. State Department official kind of echoed those thoughts. He said, the burning of religious texts is disrespectful and hurtful, and what might be legal is certainly not necessarily appropriate.
True.
Which, yeah,
listen, it's not illegal to say the N-word, but you're also not protected from consequences that happen after you make choices like saying the N-word.
Right. Here's the interesting thing. Sweden, like I guys said, they do have freedom of expression. It's not absolute.
Sure.
In our parlance, you can't shout fire in a crowded theater. It is possible, and this is kind of amusing, they could punish this guy. We're waiting to find out. They could punish this guy for lighting a fire during a heat wave, which they're not allowed to do. And that could be a technical way to
Al
get after
Capone
this
got
guy.
arrested for his tax evasion.
Yes.
Avoidance?
But Turkey's not buying it. Turkey's foreign minister.
That's a Simpsons joke. I just need everyone to know I know that avoidance is a word, but avoision is a joke from The Simpsons, and that's why I said I'm not an idiot. Don't at me. Go ahead.
Gotcha. Turkey is not buying any of this, by the way. Their foreign minister this week said it's unacceptable to allow anti-Islam protests in the name of freedom of expression. He said on Twitter, turning a blind eye to such atrocious acts is to be complicit. Which is like, no one's turning a blind eye to it, dude.
That doesn't feel like an honest. I'm curious, and I truly like current international politics are not my strong suit. But is there an additional incentive for Turkey and what was the other country?
Hungary.
Hungary to want Sweden out. I'm not actually asking you as if you know. I'm just sort of floating that question.
I'm sure there are, but this ain't helping.
Are they using this as a roadblock to avoid something else? Otherwise, it just feels like genuine intellectual dishonesty, right? Like
there are probably
you have to know that like
reasons.
One person making a bad decision
doesn't represent the country,
and also like not like putting that person on trial immediately does not represent a disrespect to Islam. It represents the fact that people have a right to say things and we have to deal with them after they do. Right?
Yes. So just to be clear here, the courts, by the way, there was an attempt to block this guy from doing his little protest, but the Swedish courts said, nope, he's allowed to do it. Free expression. He is allowed to have his protest.
How could they have blocked it? Like permits or
police action? I think people tried to get him, the Swedish police tried to block him
I see.
From doing this, and the courts are like, you can't stop him. He's allowed to do this. So it's not like people didn't try
Yeah, sucks, man.
to answer their point.
But also, every pride parade I've gone to has had a lot of protesters. Like, fucking deal with it, dog.
Just to give you a rundown, here's the consequences of what we've seen this week. Over the past week, Morocco revoked its ambassador to Sweden. Islamic protesters in Iraq stormed the Swedish embassy there until security forces were called in to stop them. The 57-state Organization of Islamic Cooperation, just a whole bunch of Muslim countries, called for measures to prevent future desecration of the Quran. The UN Human Rights Council has plans to meet to discuss a plan forward. And then, of course, Vladimir Putin got involved. And he said, burning the Quran is a criminal act.
Yeah,
and
Putin?
he cares very much about criminal actions and making sure he's never violating any sort of international human rights laws.
Doesn't it feel unserious to you? It feels unserious to me of like, we're mad at this country because one person who is not even a Swedish national did this thing. And they, apparently whoever is levying all this power and shit, do not have the ability to be like, yeah, what he did is wrong, but also we have to respect that not everybody is going to have restricted speech the way we demand.
Right. And
it feels unserious to me, but maybe I just don't take people's religious views seriously enough.
Pope Francis chimed in, and this is where I get annoyed by some of this stuff.
Everyone.
This is an international story.
How have I never heard about? Nobody's asked my opinion.
We've had a busy week with the submersible. So Pope Francis chimed in, and this is what made me mad, because, again, the right answer here, I wish the Swedish politicians went further in their blunt statements. They were trying to keep it tactful and political. I get that. Pope Francis says any book that is considered sacred to its authors must be respected out of respect for its believers. And freedom of expression must never be used as an excuse to undermine others. Like, no, you're missing the point. You're missing the point. Like, no, any book does not need to be respected. I don't care if you think it's sacred. That's not the issue here. The issue is not, if someone wants to burn a copy of their possession, it's not your book they're burning. It's his copy of the book. The Pope should be saying, okay, he has a right to do it. I wish he wouldn't. I don't think we should go after other people's things. But yeah, he's focusing on that was a horrible idea, instead of focusing on the expression.
You know what I find odd is that I feel like book burning 50 years ago or 100 years ago was incredibly, the further back in history you go, book burning was more and more significant. We just had fewer resources, fewer people who could read, fewer people who could like repair things, right? So you burn a book in, say, 1890, you're fully taking that book off of the universe. One copy of it. There was there was 30 copies, and 14 of them get burned. Sucks to suck. In today's world, I feel like when people burn books, it's very much symbolic of I disagree with this point of view, whatever this book represents.
You have a PDF on your computer and you move it to the trash. You haven't done anything. You're fine.
And like, fine. If people need to express their opinions and whatever, but I think the fact that apparently the world takes book burning as seriously now as they did 100 years ago, to me feels a little foolish because it's so much more symbolic than it ever has been before. Yeah. Before, if you burned 500 copies of something, you could erase that from the world. That's not the case anymore.
The problem with this guy's protest is he burned the Quran in order to piss off Muslims. He wanted to anger them. He waited till it was a Muslim...
everything to piss people off. What are you talking about?
He waited till it was a Muslim holiday, went to a mosque to do it. Like, none of this...
Yeah, he's a dick. Nobody's arguing that.
None of this is a legal problem. It's all a strategic problem. What I would like to see is more politicians and more people like the Pope who have a giant platform. That's what they need to condemn. They need to unequivocally defend his freedom of expression. And then if they want to condemn the intent of his protest, have at it. There's no contradiction there. Like if the best thing you could say about free speech, this is my problem with the Swedish politicians, if the best thing you could say is that, well, it's legal, That's not a defense of the core pillar
It's
of your
essential.
democracy. It's essential. Like Sweden's prime minister basically seemed to imply to me, like, I would criminalize it if I could, but I
Sure.
can't. Like, no, you're not helping your case. Just, you can easily say, here's why I have a problem with what he did, but it's not a legal issue. It's not a free expression issue.
Do you think people in power are afraid of gray areas? So the Pope is like,
I think if you're
I
trying to get
can't-
into NATO right now, today, Biden met with Sweden's prime minister. Today that happened, and Biden is like, they need to get into NATO now.
Yeah.
Like, they're trying to make that push right now. And so Sweden's prime minister's like, I need to not have any drama,
Sure.
people.
but, yeah,
So I
but-
get where he's coming from, but I wish he was more like, in Sweden, we respect freedom of expression that includes stuff we don't like.
Right.
And in this case, I don't like what that guy did. You could do that.
But I'm referring more to the Pope of
Yeah.
people who are in leadership positions seem to me very unwilling to acknowledge gray areas. It's much easier if you're a person in authority who doesn't have to deal with the daily nitty gritty, like the Pope, he doesn't have to worry about grocery shopping or babysitting or any of that shit. It's easy for him to say, this is bad and that is good, but the world is full of shades of gray, and as long as people in leadership are unwilling to trust humans, and maybe we're not trustworthy, but trust our citizens to hold two things in our head at the same time, it's tacky to burn a religious book, but it's also not worth compromising global, sanctions. We can hold two things in our head. And I don't know if it is people in power have sort of like trained us to not be able to have nuances. It's, 9/11 happened, it's bad. America's good, like that thing. I don't know if it's them not trusting us to be able to see in shades of gray, or if it is a more of a pointed, like, my people are going to think this way. I don't know, but I feel like that's really dangerous. Like, because you and I can sit here at this table and say, yeah, it's kind of shitty to burn a Qur'an, especially on a holy day, especially in front of people who to whom it means a lot.
Or
Also,
more broadly, why are you doing something for the sole purpose of making everyone angry?
Because trolls are going to
That's
troll.
what trolls do.
That's
Right.
what they do. And we have trolls on both sides. Like, literally, I'm going to talk about the case in the 1980s about a guy burning a flag and what the Supreme Court said about it. I'm going to talk about it in the bonus episode. We can't. It's okay to say, yeah, that sucked and was annoying, but you're not wrong. Like when Kanye West said George W. Bush doesn't care about black people, it was maybe
Chaotic good.
yeah, it was weird and uncomfortable, but the right thing to say, right? Like, just because, like, things aren't black and white, even if he didn't do it in, like, poor Mike Myers. I think about his poor face all the time, just a white Canadian, like, But this was in a Hurricane Katrina thing. It was, if you weren't around
Google
for
it.
this,
It's fun.
it was very funny. But anyway, it's things like that of like, maybe a disaster relief wasn't the platform to criticize the president, but he wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
And W deserved to be criticized all of the time. But we could also be like, hey, dog, that wasn't whatever. Which I would say, hey, he grabbed the moment, but then the Taylor Swift thing happened, so I think he's just a narcissist who's willing to grab the mic
How
whenever
did you
he
get
needs
from
to.
Sweden Qur'an protesting to
Taylor Swift?
Well done.
I'm a professional broadcaster, my friend.
I'm going to jump to this story from 538, the data analysis
Oh, yeah.
site. It shouldn't be surprising to anybody who's as old as we are. If you go back,
You mean very young?
Oh yeah, presidential
Relevant.
campaigns for the past several decades, like if abortion was used as a wedge issue, a culture war issue, what that meant, if I say, oh, it's an abortion election, for years, it was always, oh, white evangelicals are going to vote in order to take away abortion rights.
Right.
That's what everyone means when they say Christians are voting on this
Liberals
issue.
have been on our heels about reproductive rights for a long
Right.
time.
But here's what's interesting. Last year, the Pew Research Center found that here's the question. What has a higher percentage? The percentage of religiously unaffiliated Americans who want abortion rights, who support abortion rights, or the percentage of white evangelicals who oppose abortion rights?
I would assume white evangelicals are more actively anti-abortion.
They-
would be my guess.
This is from 2022. 74% of white evangelicals wanted abortion to be illegal.
Dying to
74%.
know the percentage of abortions that happen per capita in those situations.
So
dying to know.
74% of white evangelicals oppose abortion rights. Among religiously unaffiliated people, and remember, that's not just atheists and agnostics. This is like all the woo spirituality, I'm spiritual but not religious crazy people. 84%
Please
of
don't
them,
antagonize those people. We
I
love them.
will. 84% of them said they support abortion rights.
What was the anti one?
74.
Okay.
So there's more unaffiliated people
us.
supporting abortion rights.
Hey, good job, team.
Right?
You did it.
And by the way, a few years before that, when Pew did a different survey, but they broke it down by faith labels. So now you can see what atheists say specifically.
What do we say?
87% supported abortion rights, which, all right, it's not,
do you do
it's
the
not
thing
100%,
I do?
but still.
Oh, apparently you do, because you just said the same thing. I'm always like, what are those
Who are the
13%?
I know,
How
yeah.
can I not do, which sucks. 87% is a huge margin, but I'm like,
Yeah.
who are the atheists who are anti-choice?
The reason 538 brought this up is like when we say 74% of white evangelicals oppose abortion rights, those 74% of white evangelicals could pretty much be counted on in elections to vote because they wanted to vote for right-wing politicians and their preferred judges who embrace their, quote, pro-life agenda, right? And they were all single-issue voters, and that
course.
issue was abortion. Democrats, like you mentioned, we've historically been really bad at generating enthusiasm for the courts and judges and on culture war issues.
And I mean, this is secondhand, but I was asking my dad about my dad who lives in Wisconsin and associates only with other old rich white men. And I was asking, he used to be a Republican, now he's a Democrat because he hated Trump. And I said, your friends who still are Republican, what's their reason? And he said, by and large, if it's not racism, it's the pro-life thing. Like, they are so obsessed with quote-unquote saving babies, it's fucking... Because it's a thing you can do to make yourself feel better without doing any good. Go ahead,
Without
Hammett.
doing any work either.
Yeah.
Yeah, we owe them nothing. We'll just save the imaginary things and then give ourselves credit for it. So, 538, two researchers, Danielle Cox, Amelia Thompson-DeVoe, they basically ran the numbers now that Roe is overturned a year ago. And here's what they found that was interesting. White evangelicals, they asked, like, of all Americans, what share of American adults say abortion is a critical issue, regardless of the position you take on it? How important is this to you? And what they found is that since Roe, the share of religiously unaffiliated Americans who say abortion is a critical issue for them, for the first time, it's higher than the share of white evangelicals who say that's a critical issue.
Wait, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? I think I misunderstood you.
So basically, like 45-ish% of religiously of Americans, of religiously unaffiliated people, unaffiliated, 45% say no, abortion is our issue. We're going to vote because we're driven by abortion, and presumably that means they're supporting abortion rights.
Right.
Only like 38% of white evangelicals are like, abortion is my issue. I want to be anti-abortion.
Could you give me context? Like, did that change from pre...
So in 2011, let's go back to 2011.
Perfect.
White evangelicals, like 48% said abortion is my thing. That's my single issue. That's what I care about. At the time, the unaffiliated people, it was like 18% said abortion is my thing.
That's fair.
So for the first time
Because
now...
it was not on the chopping block
was not-
nearly as bad.
correct.
It was still, but...
Correct. So basically what 538 is saying, this is from their piece, in a swift reversal, the issue of abortion is now much more complicated on the right than on the left. Evangelicals disproportionately live in places where abortion is now banned or heavily restricted, so it may become less of a political priority for them because they've accomplished their goals in that area. And while it's true white evangelicals strongly oppose abortion, there is not universal support among them for the complete bans that some states have implemented. Like, I'm talking now, not 538. Like, there are some evangelicals who live in those states that have 6-week bans, and they're like, that's messed up. Because a lot of people don't know they're pregnant, or what if there is
Listen, I've done so many talks about what being 6 weeks pregnant means. And by the way, 6 weeks pregnant means your period is 2 weeks late.
Yeah. And so they're like,
And don't ever forget that.
if Christians are having those concerns amongst themselves, for a lot of them, they're not all in on let's keep opposing abortion rights, even among white evangelicals. But for our side, there's a lot more people who are like, I need to protect abortion rights, and I'm going to vote because it matters on those issues.
Okay, here's my question. So my understanding going into the last Supreme Court session is like all evangelicals were looking to outlaw abortion completely, right? But now that that's happened, which obviously
Dog
is more
caught the
nuanced,
car.
but the dog caught the car. And are you saying that now evangelicals are like, ooh, is that what we actually wanted to do? Is that what you're saying?
They used to be in the point where anti-abortion everything was their driving motivation to get out to vote for certain people.
Okay.
That has taken a dive.
Because they've
'Cause they
gotten
got
what
it.
they wanted.
Yes.
Okay.
And
so
in addition to that, some of those evangelicals who may say abortion is still like the top issue I care about, they do see some of these extreme policies and they're like, I don't want to vote for someone who is pushing for a complete ban.
So do you think the policies have pushed past,
In
what
some
a lot of
cases.
people, or a lot of quote unquote pro-life people wanted?
Yeah, there is disagreement among the pro-life crowd about what the line should be.
Because realistically, these choices still seem to be made by and large by white men.
Oh, yeah.
So possibly they don't know what 6 weeks pregnant means.
Yeah,
which
and they're
is,
finding
again,
out because
I want
they
to
hear
be very
horror
clear.
stories.
6 weeks pregnant means your period is 2 weeks late, and don't ever forget it, ever, ever, ever.
And so
Fuck
if you're
these people.
So if you're liberal or you're non-religious anyway, if the SCOTUS ruling to overturn Roe and Republican overreach in state legislatures doesn't motivate you to vote, like I don't know what will. And like if voters in Kansas can defeat a constitutional measure to ban abortion, who knows what the rest of the country can do as we witness extremism. And the thing is, the non-religious side here on the issue of abortion, we have the ethics on our side and we have the energy on our side because all of us, a lot of us
and
anyway. And the presidency. Like we care about these issues and we're motivated because we know what can happen when Republicans win these seats. Couple downsides to all this. We, non-religious people, are not a bloc. We know that. Like, you can't go to church and reach people and tell them how to vote. We don't have a pastor who tells us how to vote.
Herding cats.
So that's not great. We don't like people telling us how to think or vote, even if we did end up in similar places. And second, Democratic candidates in general have historically been allergic to non-religious voters. They don't court us. They don't embrace us. They don't brag about how they're going to fight for a secular country. Republicans always tell voters, we're conservative Christians, but Democrats never really talk about how religion should not guide our politics. And that they don't talk about how we're going to build a wall between church and state. We're going to represent you as non-religious voters. So, like, until they pick up on that, it's not going to happen. Yes, you're raising your hand.
No, I'm sorry. I just thought of a funny thing about like what is worse, how Democrats court the black vote and then when push comes to shove, pretty much throw them by the wayside, or non-religious people, which they don't even bother to acknowledge exist. They're both bad. I would say black people obviously black people have it worse, but like I would hate much more if they were like, non-religious people here and there. And
giving us lip service, but then never
Right.
doing anything.
But that's all I can think about it.
But
like,
they rarely give us lip service, too.
yeah, we don't even get lip service.
That's, like,
At
Democrats
least
are
they
just
bring
bad.
like an old black woman up on stage to be like, see, she's all of us. Vote for
Right.
me.
We'll have our first Democratic primary in South Carolina because the black vote's important to us.
Truly.
Sure. And then it's like, okay, but non-religious people
God, when
also
is
vote
that
for issues
happening?
next
March.
year, but technically
March.
not even because Biden's the nominee, so it's not going to happen for 4 years. Anyway, now, here's the thing. The point is, if the non-religious voters who are quickly outpacing, like, raw numbers, we're beating out white evangelicals. There's more of us than there are
Yeah.
them. And if we're driven and motivated by the abortion issue, that creates like a pathway for
voting
Democratic. Well, that creates the block. That creates a path for Democratic candidates to not be afraid of saying, yeah, I'm supporting abortion rights. I support people who are all religions, no religion. I don't care. I support separation of church and state. Like, if they want to win over apathetic voters,
Sure.
younger voters who don't vote in the same proportions, but so you can only go up with
Right.
younger voters, like, don't remain silent. Don't pretend like abortion's divisive. I won't mention it. If I bring up church-state separation, that's a bad thing. Like, no, it's not. It's a winning issue.
Yeah.
Get on it. Go all in. Don't hold back. I hope they do it. They'll never listen to me.
It's weird they don't listen to you personally.
They should. They should all hire me, and
It's weird.
write their
they should
speeches
ask me
for
because
them.
I'm much smarter than you, as has been proved on this podcast.
Done. Couple quick ones for you. This,
boy.
the headline is more fun than anything
Okay.
else. In Queensland, Australia, schools run by the Anglican Church there are facing an existential crisis because insurance companies don't want to work with them because of all the child sex predators they keep hiring.
No! You're fucking lying to me.
The insurance companies are
Anglican?
like,
Oh, no,
Yep.
excuse me. Oh my God.
So just to give you some background on this, in
Wow.
2017, Australia's Royal Commission looked into the institutional responses to child sex abuse. Like, for example, they found that 7% of Catholic priests in the country were accused of sexually abusing kids. 7%. Between
More
1950...
than 1 out of 20 priests you meet in Australia.
Yep.
Somebody's been like, that guy
between
raped me.
1950 and 2010.
Fuck me.
That was it. The same commission also found similar problems with the Anglican Church. They said, we found 1,115 complaints of child sexual abuse by the church between 1980 and 2015, and it involved 22 of the 23 Anglican dioceses in Australia.
Do you know anything about the Anglican?
Nope, don't even ask.
I'm Googling it.
But basically, one of the recommendations the Royal Commission made is, like, one, you should end the statute of limitations on child sex abuse cases so more lawsuits can be filed by survivors
Sure.
and all that. And because of that, now all these private insurance companies are like, we don't want to work with the church-run entities
Bing
because you're
bong.
all going to get sued like crazy. Last month, The Guardian revealed that state
It's the
governments...
Church of England.
There you
That's
go.
what Anglicanism is.
So The Guardian revealed that state governments were actually stepping in to cover the gaps for these schools.
Wow.
This is from The Guardian. In Queensland alone, the state government has now brokered temporary deals to offer indemnity for child sex abuse claims relating to 18 organizations. Why is the government protecting them? Because they do, like, home care and youth homelessness services, which, yeah, churches do a lot of that sort of charitable stuff. That's nice. But also the state has to step in. They're like, we need you right now because we can't take over for you. So we got to provide you with insurance so you can't, in case you're sued for all the child sex abuse.
I feel like I ring this bell a lot, but Hemmett works for a public school. I work for a local nonprofit organization. How many lawsuits of sexual misconduct against a minor in your place of work do you think you would get before, I don't know, you got shut the fuck down?
If someone whispered it as a rumor,
It
gone.
would be gone.
Yeah. And here's the thing:
I wish the rules were the same.
The government could step in for those like charitable religious organizations because there's a reason you need those. But when it comes to private schools, the government isn't stepping in to help them, which means those schools have to find someone to do it, and they can't find private insurers to do it.
Oh,
and so now they have to face the full financial consequences of all their sex abuse.
This is exactly like how Tom Cruise had to form his own insurance company because he refuses to stop doing his own stunts.
Yeah.
And nobody will insure him. My friend who works for IATSE, the behind the scenes kind of film organization, says that makes Tom Cruise a fucking nightmare to work with.
I'm sure.
Can you imagine like your biggest star is doing these high risk stunt shit and you're just like, gee, I hope he doesn't fucking die because that's my job for the next 8
Of
months.
all the movies I've been looking forward to seeing, none of them involve him.
Really?
Yeah. I have yet to see a Mission Impossible or Top Gun.
I saw the first and third Missions Impossible.
There's 3?
There's how many are there, baby?
This is the new one's 7.
The new one is number 7.
What?
Was the last one Ghost Protocol?
There were
Oh, Ghost Protocol.
no idea what all you people are talking about.
I don't get it twisted. I haven't seen any of them, but also I
Still
exist
trying to
in
get
the
over why there was a Fast and the
world.
Furious 2. I'm behind.
We need to talk about, oh my God, that could be a bonus thing as we watch the Fast
No.
and Furious movies with Mikey. Because guess who loves the Fast and Furious movies? His name is Michael Greiff, and I'm married to him for reasons that are unclear.
I got one more. It'll be fast. Too bad. So, hey, we're not going to be back for like 3 weeks. So,
do people know that?
hey,
Sorry,
we're going to be
gang.
back in 3
I
weeks.
cannot
Summer break.
wait to give my brain a break. I can't wait.
So, brief back. We're going to go back in time. 2015, Pew Research Center, they released a major study about religion in America.
Okay.
One graph that they published that I still think about to this day. It was about religious switching. Basically, they were saying, they asked all these people, what religion were you raised in? What religion are you now? Right? And like, did you change?
I grew up evangelical, I'm an atheist.
And the thing
now.
they found is that if you were raised without religion, like for every one person who said, well, I was raised without religion and now I am religious, for every one person who like left the nuns,
Sure.
4.2 people became nuns.
Oh, I feel like it was higher than that.
Yeah, 4.2 people. So everyone's becoming a nun.
So we're doing pretty good.
But for every one person who joins the Catholic Church, 6.5 people left it.
That tracks.
Yeah, that was 2014.
Oh boy. Okay.
It was
and
also
shit's popped off since then vis-a-vis the Catholic Church.
It was also bad for mainline Protestants who were losing more than they were gaining. Historically, black Protestants were losing more than they were gaining. Evangelicals were gaining a few, like 1.2 for every one loss. So they were gaining,
really?
but very
Barely.
That was before Trump. So anyway, that was back in the day. You could tell why that has
it
stuck with me
2015?
for a while. That was 2014. The study came out, I think, the following year.
Okay.
So the thing is, sociologist Ryan Burge, he kind of was wondering, what are we at now? What's going on like a decade later? And basically what he found is not that much different. Mainline Protestants, the retention rate for mainline Protestants has gone from like 50 years ago, 76% of people who were like mainline Protestants, 76% of them who were raised that way were still that as they were adults. Now it's 58%. Black Protestants, 50 years ago, if you were raised as a black Protestant, 87% of you stuck with it as you got older. 87. Now it's 71%. Catholics.
Holy shit, that's a massive
50 years
drop-off.
ago, if you were raised as a Catholic, 85% of you stayed that way as you were older. Now it's 67%.
And I've met all of the ones who have left the Catholic Church.
Evangelicals have had a drop from 78 to 73%, but it's
not
a
as
smaller drop.
precipitous.
So where are
I
these
feel
people
like they have,
all
like,
going?
a more geographical lock, don't you think? Like
be.
evangelicals, it's
The
just
culture
dense.
is more
yeah.
there. No religion is the one, if you were raised without religion in the 70s, like only 36% of you were still non-religious by the time you were
46?
older. 36.
36?
A lot of people
Really?
found religion in the 70s. Like a lot of people grew up, found religion.
Two-thirds,
Now,
wow.
now 66%.
Oh.
We've practically doubled in terms of retention rate. So the thing is, here's what Burge writes. The nuns are a different story entirely. It used to be that 2/3 of those raised nuns identified with a religion as adults. Now, about 2/3 of those raised with no faith group are still nuns into adulthood.
Floored by that 2/3 number.
And I would
That's
add,
shocking
I would
to
add
me.
to that, like, we're now coming to a point where people raised without religion or who have no religion have had kids, and those kids are now growing up without religion. We're now seeing second generation nuns, atheists, whatever.
I mean,
and it's not weird anymore. It was weird 50 years ago,
look
for
at
sure.
my niece and nephew. My folks were both raised Catholic separately. One's Irish Catholic, one's Italian Catholic. Both raised Catholic. My brother and I were baptized. Did not get our communion, and we did the only church when my dad's mom was in town. And now my brother has kids, and my sister-in-law's actually Catholic, but they're certainly not going to school. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's hard to understand the depth, like the break between a parent teaching your religion and a parent not teaching your religion.
Oh, yeah.
It's insane because that's why I'm so surprised by that 2/3 number, because religion sometimes feels like momentum to me, of like you're just doing the thing you're doing, so you're going to keep doing it. So it kind of
And when someone breaks it,
it
like,
surprises me.
it's
It
gone
surprises
now.
me. But you know what? I guess I was wrong.
Very
Anyway.
interesting. And I think that number, the retention rate's only going to get higher for the nuns because we're getting to the point where not raising your kid with religion is becoming normalized. And that's good. And that means more
religion
people.
is getting more and more tight and galvanized.
Yeah.
And like in our neighborhood, there's our neck of the woods, there's a billion like really liberal Christian shit. But in many other places in the country, churches are conservative bastions. And so if you don't agree with them, you're not going to buy into their religion. Why would you?
Yeah. So with that in mind, I'm going to be out of the country
are
for
we
a
done?
while. We're done.
You're so good at telegraphing.
I will tell you, I have recorded a couple interviews that are new that I'm not telling you who they are with, but they are fantastic guests. You're going to enjoy those interviews. We'll release those over the next 2 weeks. We will be back at the end of July with our next episode.
That's really weird.
So we'll be doing that. And I got to tell you, for the bonus episode, I have the best story for you.
Honestly, I have like 5 things to talk about in the bonus episode.
What are we talking about?
Okay, this is our pre-recording discussion is talking about what we look for nonfiction YouTubers.
Mm-hmm.
Him and I had a long discussion about that. I'm watching the show Jane the Virgin that I'm genuinely enjoying very much. I listened to 2 episodes of This Day in Esoteric Political History. One is about Southern states rejoining the Union after the Civil War. The other is about flag burning. I want to talk about those. And then we're just going to kind of talk about the future of Twitter.
Oh, yeah. All right, we'll see you. We'll be back for an episode like this in 3 weeks. You'll hear a couple awesome interviews over the next 2. See you soon.
I'll miss you guys.